Okay, in this video here, we're continuing with spreadsheet commands, but we're on the second tab. This is the command. So over here, we had just the mathematical, symbols and their implication in terms of how you might use them in a particular cell. Here we're going to look at spreadsheet commands. So these are functions which are built into the spreadsheet. So if you look over on the left here, column A is going to give you the names for those, and you'll notice that they're all linked. They're linked actually to further descriptions about them. So if I look at the term count or CountA, I can click on this, and it's going to take me directly to that document. So this will be the document that will describe in detail how that is used. Now, most people find this actually a little confusing, so I've tried to simplify it here by looking at the put in a description here, which is just a summary. So for example, count says it's going to return a count of the number of numeric values in a data set. So what that means is that when you click on a range, then it's going to tell you, if you count that range, you're going to count how many cells have numbers in them, basically. So if I say equals count the range of E1 to E, now that means it's going to count how many instances there are of numbers in column E, starting at E1 and going to the last E. Now just a word about the syntax here. In spreadsheet syntax, when you don't put a number at the end, that means go to the last instance in column E. So if we scroll down here, you can see that the last instance is in any particular column is happening right around number 27. So, but if you were to enter some more farther down the table, it'll pick those up as well. So what this does is that it's a very, very useful, particularly when you're doing pooling data, because you never know exactly how many instances of the data you're going to have. And if a student puts in data into a particular cell, or if a form dumps that information into a particular cell, it doesn't really matter, where it is, so long as it is, in this case, like in the particular column, like column E in this case right here. So this is used just to count how many entries. So let's say that you're looking for how many students responded to a question in terms of some kind of calculated value for, let's say, the velocity of a cart in a physics experiment. Well, if they all entered in their values right here, the count would just tell you how many people responded. So it's a quick way to get a total of how many entries. But this is working again with numeric values. It doesn't care what the value is, so long as it's numeric. Now, CountA is very similar to that. So CountA returns a count of the number of values in a data set. Okay, this would be not just numbers here, as a count is. This is going to count you how many like text values. In other words, like let's say it could be people's names and so forth. And so it could look at a list like the range E1 to E and then total it up. So if I scroll over here, you can see this is column E1. And you'll notice that if we look at this, there happens to be 9 entries there. So count E1 to E gives you 9. If you scroll over here and you kind of go, well, what else is in there? If you click down here, oh, there's also the word chemistry down here, and there's the word chemistry here. So there's 2 more. So count A is taking not only the number of numeric entries, but it's also taking into account any entry like text as well. So count A just means, it means alpha, like in other words, alphabetical, but it also includes numbers. So again, you can see this is a functional worksheet. If I click over here, I can see the values right there that it's actually working with. So if I look at the cell here, if I click on that, you'll notice that this cell here is doing what this cell shows. So if I click on this cell, note it has the apostrophe indicating, oh, that's just appearing as text. So this doesn't actually do anything. It just helps the reader see what's going on. But that there without the apostrophe there is expressed right here. And so you can see up here, oh yeah, I'm looking at equals count A, E1 to E. So once again, I go to E1, I look at E1 and I say, okay, let's go to E1, it's right here. And now let's go all the way to E. And as we scroll down, we can see, oh, there's 9 right there. Oh, there's 2 more entries, even though they're text entries. So we'll count that 11. And that's why count A is returning 11. Now, the when I do count blank, that as its name implies, that's just going to say how many cells are empty. So in this spreadsheet, a default on the spreadsheet is to give you 1,000 rows. Now you can reduce the number of rows anytime you want to. And the number of columns it's going to default to is going to be Z. You can see I've already lopped off from columns I on. So right here, if I take 1,000 and I subtract the 11 cells which actually have some type of data in it, then I'm left with 989. And that's where that value is coming from there. Now notice if I shorten the table here, so let's say I get rid of row 1,000 all the way to, let's say, to 28. And I just held the shift key down while I was selecting that. So if I delete those, now watch what happens up here. Okay, that this is now saying, oh, okay, how are we doing in terms of our where count blank is going to go? And we're going to see, our count blank now just went down to, rather than from 987, it's going down to 26. In other words, there's 26 blanks there now. All right. I'm sorry, 16, but I'm looking at wrong column. Okay. And so if I looked here and I started to count the cells, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I total them all the way down to the end of this here, it's going to be 16. So what I oftentimes will suggest you lop off the excess rows and columns like I've done there, just simply to make this spreadsheet more manageable so students don't scroll off. Now the next function here is the Countifs. Okay, so Countifs is basically returning the count of a range dependent upon a variety of criteria. So in other words, it's like an if-then statement. So if these criteria met, okay, then you're going to count it as a positive. So for example, if in the range E1 to E10, any cell which is greater than 20, and also if E1 and E10 is less than 30, then count it. So what we're going to do is we're going to count the number that are greater than 20 and the greater than less than 30 in column E. So if we go over to column E, we can look at this and we can say, oh, well, how many are greater than 20 and less than 30? And you can see that there's only 2, 24 and 26 within this entire column. And so that's why that number returns 2. So again, there's the equation. You can see there's the correct syntax for how that's represented. This is just text of the same thing, but this is the actual formula. There starts with an equals sign, equals Countifs, and we put all of that in there. And that is going to then return the number there, 34. So that's a kind of a brief introduction to CountA, count blank, and Countifs, ways that we can tabulate the numbers in a particular spreadsheet.